Hi everybody and welcome to session 5 of the Pharmacy Guild Student Summit. Welcome back if you've already joined us today, and welcome to those that haven't. This session is about your first year in the real world after internship, what that looks like for you working in the pharmacy, potentially being a pharmacist. You might be in charge from day to day. So we're going to hear from some of the experts in those fields, people who have worked there, people who support those people, and also people that are closely aligned to our intern program. So I'd like to introduce Andrew Patterson, who is going to facilitate the session today and start asking the questions. If you guys have any questions though, please feel free to pop them in the question box, because we will be able to refer to those towards the end of the session. Over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Mel, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon. I think we've got a pretty entertaining 45 minutes for you in what is all about practicalities. You know, you come out of university or your intern, then what we're actually talking about now is when the rubber hits the road and what life is really like. And, you know, I know if you've been in on the last couple of sessions, pharmacy has never been at a more fascinating period. It's never been at a more crucial period as part of our national health program. And so the practicalities from day one are far different from the discussion we would have been having 2 years ago. We know that across the network, the functional and operations of community pharmacies are very different. We've got PPE, we've got all these things, but still at the core of the essence of our businesses, we are medicines experts. So operating the full scope of practice and all those kind of things. So part of the things we're going to explore today. Pharmacy platform where I work, I think we employ about 15 pharmacists, and so I did ask them what advice they would give themselves, real world advice, and I'll drip feed some of this in over the course of the day. Some of the advice was a bit useless, I'm going to say, I won't lie to you. Never wear long sleeves underneath a short sleeve pharmacy jacket. So I was hoping for something intelligent. Clearly the pharmacists that we hire are perhaps not of the ilk of Erin and others that have joined us today. So what I'll do is I'll get the panel to introduce themselves, just jump around, give us an insight as to who they are, their experience, and yeah, any other key things they want to share with us. So I'll start from my top left with Erin. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Erin Cooper. I completed my internship last year, so I'm pretty freshly registered. So hopefully I can provide some insight for you all today. And I'm currently working as a pharmacist in Capital Chemist Waniasa in the ACT.
Welcome, Erin. Ali is at the top right.
Thanks, Andrew. My name's Ali Hope. I've been a pharmacist for over a decade now, and my main role currently is manager of the National Guild Intern Training Program. So I've got a lot of experience in education and pharmacy, so hopefully can tie in some of those themes as well for you.
Beautiful, welcome. Hayley.
Hi everyone, I'm Hayley Smiley, and I am one of the professional officers at PDL. I've been practicing pharmacy for over 20 years and have worked community hospital and a number of other settings. I have experience in education, risk management, and obviously pharmacy practice.
Welcome, Hayley. And Kay.
Hello everyone, I'm Kay Dunkley from the Pharmacist Support Service. I've been in pharmacy for a long time. I won't put a number of years to it, but I still remember my intern year very well, just, you know, despite the time that's passed. And it was, you know, there was good times, there was bad times. I'm currently working as the Executive Officer of the Pharmacist Support Service, and our service talks to a lot of people during their intern year who, you know, are going through challenging times. And I think, you know, based on that, I've got some thoughts to share around what to look out for as you go into this stage of your career.
Awesome, looking forward to hearing those insights. And John.
Hi everyone, I won't disclose when I did my intern year, but I've been a previous pharmacy owner and QCP accredited. I'm currently a professional officer working for PDL based in Melbourne.
Nice one, welcome, John. So we might kick off with Ali, and we'll start at the very beginning. I hear it's a very good place to start. When students are applying for an internship, Ali, what advice would you give? How do you find a good intern position? I'll ask everyone, but we'll kick off with you.
My recommendation was to choose a pharmacy that interests you. So choose, doesn't matter what kind of setting, particularly if you're in a particular setting, choose a pharmacy or a hospital that you're actually interested in pursuing. Try not to choose a pharmacy just because it's close to your house or close to where you want to live. And if you're really wanting a wholesome intern year, with a lot of different experiences, I'm really passionate about rural community pharmacy. So I'd really encourage people to branch outside of metropolitan areas. I did my internship in a rural area, and I think I'm a much better practitioner because of it.
Well, great advice. Hayley, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, look, I think it's really important to find a preceptor that you connect with and that you're aligned with. A lot of times I've seen that there has been a mismatch between preceptors and students, and that usually is what causes a lot of the angst in the intern year. So if you've got particularly a supportive preceptor and one that doesn't get frustrated with lots of questions, that's a great place to begin.
Yeah, nice one. I see, Kay, you're nodding aggressively there. Is there anything to add and build on that?
Yes, and look, certainly I'd endorse what both Ali and Hayley have said. And I think trying to get a sense of the culture of the workplace that you're going into, trying to find out if you know someone who's done an internship, even if it wasn't the previous year, but a few years ago, chatting to them about what they found was good and what wasn't so good, so that you've got a realistic expectation. And when you are interviewed, have some questions that you're going to ask about how they're going to support you as an intern. I mean, you are there to work and you will be expected to contribute, but you're also there to learn. And so I think it's important to find out a little bit about what they're offering you. Will there be regular meetings with your preceptor? Will they give you different opportunities to experience different aspects of pharmacy? You know, what will your roster look like? What your working hours are going to be? So go prepared with lots of questions so that you actually know beforehand what to expect.
Yeah, it's brilliant advice. I mean, you're, interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, as they say in the classics, but getting a clear picture on what a pathway forward might look like. That's cracking advice to manage expectations from day one or even before that. John, any advice you'd give?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. You need to find a preceptor that's really interested in teaching you and not just using you as a source of cheap labour, perhaps. And you may only find out who is good by talking to previous interns in that pharmacy. I remember when I did my intern year, I came out of the pharmacy college with high principles and standards and everything else, and I got a script for 100 grams of cream. And I started weighing it out on the scales, and the boss came by and he said, "What on earth are you doing?" He said, "Just fill it to the top." And I was horrified at that advice, but that's what could happen if you don't get someone that's not really interested in teaching you properly.
Yeah, well, okay, all right. Now, Erin, I guess to close it out with you, your experience, obviously very recently practical. What do you think of our panel's advice here? Would you tip your lid? Tell us about your experience.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone has said. I think it's really important to do a lot of research before going into your intern year. We all, as individuals, have different ideas and things we want to achieve during our intern year, and we all have lots of different ideas about the pharmacy world and how we want to practice as a pharmacist. So I think it's super important to do your research to find those that have similar ideas and goals to yourself. And I think it's really important to sort of expand your mind. Don't just look for the pharmacy that's closest to you or the pharmacy in your town. There are so many incredible pharmacists all across Australia that can offer so many different things. So find, no matter where it is, someone that you find aligns the best with you. I was really lucky through all my NAPSA experience to have met a lot of pharmacists all across Australia personally. So I'd had the opportunity to have conversations with them while I was still a student and got a feel for how their pharmacies ran how they work as preceptors. Your connections through NAPSA now are great as well, because as everyone was saying, it's super important to talk to previous interns. So building that relationship with other pharmacy students now will help you get that sort of inside information as to what it's like to work at those places. But yeah, don't change your ideas to fit with your intern location. Find somewhere that will work best with you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for life, isn't it? You know, if you follow your passion, find something you're passionate about, then, you know, work's not a hassle, it's not a chore. You're going to thoroughly enjoy it. So, so if we look at the sort of practicalities, Erin, I'll put the spotlight back on you. Day one, someone said to me in one of the panels this morning, I think, that the difference between being an intern and a pharmacist is 1 day. Tell us from your experience, what's it been like to shift, or, you know, from your perception?
Yeah, so although you feel like you're being trained up for this whole 12 months, the day you get that title, that APRA registration, it does feel quite different. Even though for the most part you're doing the same job you've been doing, there's just that extra responsibility. There's not that safety net as such that you can fall into. I think in one of my first weeks of being registered, I worked one of the days on the weekend when I was the only pharmacist, which was quite terrifying. Although I felt I had developed all the skills I needed, still that thought of being there on my own was quite terrifying. I think one thing particularly that you may not learn as much in your intern year, that is the biggest shock, is the sort of management side of becoming a pharmacist. As an intern, you still are being managed by one of the pharmacists. They sort of still oversee a lot of the other staff. But then when you take a step up into that pharmacist role or the pharmacist in charge role, it's a big sort of shift in dynamics, particularly if you've interned at the same place that you then start working as a pharmacist. So I think the biggest thing is, yeah, finding your footing there and working out how you approach the management side of the role.
And I don't know if any other panelists had any comments on that and sort of that transitional process, difference between an intern and a registered pharmacist. Ali, what are you hearing?
I just reminded me, Erin, of my time of being registered. I remember it clear as day. I checked the APRA website and it was 1:30 in the afternoon. I was like, oh, it's registered. Wow, like you don't get at that time, you didn't get a formal notification. It was just on the register. I was a general practitioner. How exciting. I told my preceptor, he was really excited for me, and he said, oh, all right, well, 1:30, I'm going to go home. And I said, oh, okay. And I checked my first script, which was Augmentin Duofort. I checked it 5 times, and I was, you know, definitely sure, you know, I dispensed it probably hundreds of times over my intern year, but just being prepared. And I couldn't echo what Erin said enough about management. Just the timing of how things worked in our pharmacy. I went from being an intern pharmacist to a general pharmacist for 2 weeks. And then I was managing a team of 20. So it can be a big accelerated learning curve, but do it you're comfortable with. Like if you don't think you're the type of person that can manage people, get some skills behind you that can help you manage people. Ask for help from preceptors, other pharmacists. Don't write off staff that aren't pharmacists that have been in the pharmacy for years. Just because they're not a pharmacist, they can still give you a lot of practical skills to help you manage staff. So that's always my biggest take home, is that use everyone around you and don't feel like you're on your own.
I'm not sure if anyone has anything to add.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that now you're fully registered, you know it all, and be afraid to ask questions. We're all still learning, and so always seek advice if you're not sure. That's not something that you should be embarrassed about doing.
And I think that that's, you know, in terms of emotional maturity, as humans, we're all evolving every day. Hopefully we've learned something that we didn't know the day before. But that is one of the things that my team of pharmacists has passed on, to say, you don't know everything, right? Don't pretend you do. this whole thing's a journey. I know some of our other panels today have spoken particularly about managing people and how difficult that is and emotionally taxing that can be, and you come out as a medicines expert, and next thing you know, you're perhaps not aware and, you know, dealing with human and social issues, but beyond what we're taught at uni, mental health, first aid, domestic violence, all things that suddenly, as a trusted community pharmacist, that you're exposed to. And you don't necessarily have that maturity, life skills yet to deal with those things. Hayley, any comments on that? Or
Yeah, look, I concur with everyone else. I was working in hospital for my intern year, and the transition from being an intern in hospital to being a registered pharmacist in hospital is quite a big step, and you tend to go to managing quite a large team very quickly, particularly in the dispensary. So having those people skills and the relationships, and I think professional relationships rather than personal relationships can really help, because even if you have a personal relationship with someone, if you have to step up and manage and take responsibility for things, it is important to have that respect from them as well.
Yeah. And respect is earned. I mean, that's in life, you know, just because you have a title bestowed upon yourself, you know, to Erin's point earlier, that, or even Alison's point, that that at 1:29 she was one of the crew, and by 1:31 the owner was playing golf. You know, these things are, you know, you're the same person you were 2 minutes ago. There's just, you know, a different focus. I guess, Ali, managing the Guild intern program, what are we hearing out there from interns, recent grads? Obviously, as I referred to earlier, the sector is evolving so quickly, you know, and it's putting pressure, the fatigue in the network. And I know Kay would, you know, might comment on this afterwards. Just, you know, we're seeing pharmacists really burning out. They're under a lot of pressure at the moment. What are we hearing from the intern side of things?
I think we've already hit the nail on the head. I was thinking about this before I came on, and a lot of our interns, they at the end of their year, sometimes they get a little bit frustrated because they feel like, you know, they've done 4 years of university and then they've done this whole year of the intern year, they've done all the hours, they're finally registered, and they feel like they don't have the respect. So going back to what you said, like, respect is earned. It's not once you're a pharmacist, everyone's going to respect you. And one of, when I was in my intern year, towards the end of my first week, my preceptor said, okay, come on, you know, grab your phone, we're going to go for a walk. And I was like, a walk? Like, where are we going? And I was in a small town of 3,000 people. We walked to the 5 medical practices, and I knocked on the door and introduced myself to each of the doctors in each of those practices. And then we did the same at the dentist, and then I did the same at the vets, and then I did the same at the hospital. So yes, it took half a day, but that is something I've carried with me for all of my career. When you start at a new practice setting, introduce yourself. If you can't physically go there and take a coffee with you, call them and say, oh, I'm Ali, I'm the new pharmacist in the area, just looking forward to building our working relationship. And that has gone so much further. In one of my previous places, we actually joined lunchrooms with a medical practice. And so we had pharmacy staff and doctors and medical nurses and reception staff having lunch together. And that improved our patient outcomes immensely. Like, you wouldn't even imagine how much it could have improved, but our relationship was so much better. I think the intern year, and I'm sure Erin can echo this, the intern year is what I would class the hardest year of my professional practice. You not only have you gone from working, you were studying full time, and now you're still studying almost full time, and you're working full time in most cases. So you need to come into ways of helping deal with stress. You know, call the pharmacist support service if you need help. Talk to your preceptor, and developing that open communication. A lot of the problems I see as a manager of the intern training program is that there's always been an issue with the preceptor, but they're not telling us until October, and they started their internship in January. And I'm sorry to say, but if you've been having issues and you can't get your preceptor to fill in the forms or fill off your assignments or verify you did your health promotion until October, at that point, the other week we had it happen, the preceptor said, no, you're not competent, I'm not signing you off. So if that intern had come to us in January, February, March, April and said, I'm having trouble with my preceptor, what can I do? We could have put some strategies in place to help them and get them the competencies along the way, rather than getting to, you know, the end of the year and we're really going to struggle to get the pharmacist registered.
And I think that's obviously great advice, Kay, to kind of look to your expertise. From your experience, what support do kind of early career pharmacists need?
Well, I think there's a range of supports, and I really like to endorse what Ali said. Ask for help early and don't be shy about asking for help, because I know it seems hard. You're out of uni, you're meant to be able to manage things, but you are still on a steep learning curve, and that applies too in those early years of registration. You know, I mean, pharmacy, you never stop learning, but particularly in those early years, it's very steep, and so it's fine to ask for help. It doesn't mean that you're not coping. It means that you need to have someone perhaps give you a new perspective on an issue. So I'd really like to encourage people to reach out, and you know, there are a number of people around you that you can reach to for support. I mean, obviously, if it's around particular issues that you're experiencing in terms of perhaps communicating with patients or things like that, well, you turn to your preceptor, and a good preceptor will help you develop some strategies. If you are having problems with your preceptor, then talking to your intern training provider can be helpful. Within each pharmacy, you've got different staff who have different skills, and you know, utilise their knowledge and skills. I mean, for example, the staff who are out the front in the pharmacy know a lot of the products. So if you've got to learn some of the over-the-counter products, you know, for exams and so on, you know, utilise their skills. Talk to them about what feedback they get from the patient. So, you know, build your own little network within the pharmacy, and, you know, don't be afraid to form good relationships with the rest of the team, not just your preceptor and not just the pharmacists, because, you know, as has been mentioned before, all the staff have a lot of knowledge. Then outside the workplace, you obviously need to have people around you to support, because it is a challenging year. So whether it's family or friends, you know, keep in touch with your uni friends. Don't sort of isolate yourself. Social media can be helpful. It can also be a bit tricky, because sometimes it looks like everyone else is having a great year and you don't feel like you are. But, you know, keeping up with those friendships and having, you know, close personal friendships, people that you can talk to. Having a mentor perhaps who's outside, and this could just be someone that you've worked with in the past, you know, or someone that is sort of got that broader experience. Then you've got the services available. I mean, you might, you know, if you're a PDL member, obviously that's a fantastic source of support around the sorts of issues that crop up in clinical practice. You've got the PSA advice line as well if you're a PSA member. You've got, you know, your intern training programs again will be able to assist you with those sort of areas as well. And then PSS, Pharmacist Support Service, and we're there for those sort of conversations you want to have when you're really not sure where else to turn, and you perhaps want to keep it anonymous at this stage, and you want to be confidential, and you might want to express a bit of emotion. I mean, we do get people on the phone who might shed a few tears or, you know, sort of break down during the conversation, and that's okay. That's what we're there for, is to provide that sort of more collegiate support. I mean, we're not going to be able to, you know, intervene unless you want us to, but we're going to be able to help you find out who else you can talk to and who can assist you with particular issues. So I think it's all around those things. And look, the other thing is your general health during your intern year. Suddenly you're working every day, you're exposed to people who come into the pharmacy and cough and sneeze. I mean, at the moment, hopefully everyone's wearing masks, so there's some level of protection, but it's not uncommon for interns to catch gastro, colds and coughs, all the common diseases that are spread easily. So make sure that you have your own doctor, that you see them, you know, during the year, have checkups, look after your health, you know, keep up your outside activities and try and keep that balance in life. through doing things that you really enjoy. I mean, I know Erin's a dance teacher, so, you know, I think keeping up those sorts of things so that you've got that balance and that sort of outlet that's outside of pharmacy. It's very easy to become so pharmacy focused during that first year because you've got to study, you've got to work, but try and have that little bit of time where you do some things that you enjoy and really relax.
Yeah, it's great advice. I might pick up on two things you've said there. One is, you know, acknowledging you're not going to be an expert in everything is critical. I know I started my life working in community pharmacy. I was a pharmacy assistant. My dad was a pharmacist, so I studied psychology. But the retail managers in the pharmacies were the best people managers I've perhaps ever come across, and far better. You know, with great respect, I'm looking at a room full of pharmacists and wannabe pharmacists, but just had amazing leadership skills and management skills that the pharmacists just didn't have. So learning from those individuals was critical. To pick up on Kay's point, and I'll just jump back to the team of pharmacists in the office, one of the pieces of advice is learn how to deep breathe and deal with stress. And it's critical to recognise stress when there's a queue of patients, phones ringing, you haven't been to the toilet for 4 hours, haven't had lunch, haven't had tea, a cup of tea. Managing that stress and recognising that is really important. The other thing that someone said is to say, if you make a mistake, don't take it personally and beat yourself up about it. Don't be afraid to call PDL and ask for advice. They're pharmacists, they've been in your position. If it was a near miss, they can provide you with 24/7 advice. I was too scared to call PDL. I thought I'd get a black mark against my name, ha ha. So I guess, you know, in a segue to John or Hayley, what are some of the common challenges and problems that you see that sort of young pharmacists, newly registered pharmacists are facing out there? Hayley, you want to have a crack?
I'll let John go first.
It's you guys, so polite.
The common problems, well, obviously lack of experience, which could only be rectified with time in the coalface. One piece of advice I'd like to give to newly registered pharmacists is to learn to use open questions as opposed to closed questions where you'll only get a yes or no answer. And an open question will stand you in very good stead in a couple of fields. Number one is when you're handing out medicine into the pharmacy. Pharmacists will call out a name and someone will say yes, no further questioning, and someone ends up with the wrong medicine and can end up in hospital, as has happened on numerous occasions. And the other field that's really important to ask open questions as opposed to closed is when you're counselling, because recently we had a case where there was some Tegretol prescribed for neuralgic pain, and the carbamazepine it was, and the pharmacist gave carbimazole, and all I said to them was, have you had this before? And they got an answer of no, and that was the end of the counselling. Had they said, you know, tell me about what your doctor's told you, how will this help? You would have found out one was for pain and one was for thyroidism. So it is important to ask the right sort of questions.
And Hayley, anything from your perspective?
Yeah, look, one of the biggest tips I would say is develop your communication skills. Really work on them, hone them. They're going to stand you in good stead regardless of the situation. And going back to, you know, potentially having an incident or an error, if you can communicate with that patient at the time, and then the prescribing team and the rest of the support people around them, you're going to end up with a much better outcome than if you're struggling and sort of making excuses. Because we see a lot of the time people will make excuses and say, oh, but I didn't dispense it, or somebody else did this or somebody else did that. The patient doesn't want to hear that. They actually want to be validated, and they want to have their experience heard. And from our perspective at PDL, we always say it's perfectly fine to say sorry. Sorry isn't an admission of liability, and you should always apologise, because that at least opens the conversation and allows you to discuss it further.
Yeah, fantastic. And in terms of, I guess, there any other practical kind of incidents or, you know, that you can share with us, and what the outcomes look like? I mean, I think saying sorry is a you know, and a genuine human-to-human kind of connection. John's given us an example. Are there any other kind of common things that you guys see? When I say common, I say that in inverted commas, you know, I'm not saying it.
One of the most common ones, I think John touched on it, is giving out medications to the wrong person. And we see that it accounts for about 10% of all of the errors. And it can be very difficult to follow up if you hand out the wrong medication to somebody, because you may not even know who the other patient is. So that's probably one of the biggest ones that we see in practice that's readily avoidable by asking open-ended questions. Probably one of the other ones is being clear and having systems in place for your supplier's Schedule 3 items. So one of the other incidents that we have seen recently is fluconazole being given out instead of the morning after pill. And that, as you can imagine, can have quite severe consequences. So a conversation and having the ability to communicate with that patient openly about what can be a difficult topic of conversation can really prevent errors like that.
Yeah, okay. Great advice. And I think communication and open questions in anything you do in life is going to take you a good way forward. Kay, anything to add to just the things? Obviously, you see some deeply personal experiences when people are calling you.
Yeah, look, I think utilising more private areas within the pharmacy is a really critical one. It's something that pharmacists get criticised a lot for. Things that we take for granted in terms of discussions may be quite personal to a lot of other people. And so I think, you know, being prepared to take someone aside into the consulting room if available, but even just to the side of the counter away from the front where everyone else might be, to have those discussions, because from what I gather, that's a really big complaint that the regulator receives, is that people feel that their confidentiality and privacy is being compromised by the way pharmacy handles these situations. I mean, even simple things like someone's coming in for a vaccination and they're completing their paperwork and the date of birth, you know, you really shouldn't be asking. A lot of people won't want to give their date of birth out in public in front of everyone. So I think just really, you know, it's a very important thing to many people that these conversations are held away from other people. So I think being really aware of that is really important.
And that healthcare information. So I guess to switch, we've looked at some of the daunting aspects. We've looked at some of the things to be aware. Erin, what's awesome about it? What is awesome about switching from the, you know, into the real world?
I guess similarly to what's not so great, what is great is you have a bit more freedom, so you can find a bit more of who you are as a pharmacist and where you want to take your career. I think in the intern year, I know from my experience, I sort of worked as a bit of a jack of all trades. I did every service offered in the pharmacy, had a real taste of everything. And I think now, having finished, I've been able to work out what it is that I really enjoy, what it is that I don't enjoy as much, and really being able to sort of channel my interests and my time into those areas. So it's sort of a bit more, I know every pharmacy obviously is different with what they offer and things, but also once registered, you have a bit more of an opportunity to maybe find some new services or something that you're really interested in. You have a bit more time because you're not studying or being bombarded with every problem you need to ring the doctor to fix. You can spend more of your time investing in a new service and working on that for the benefit of your whole wider pharmacy community.
And Ali, from your perspective, what are you hearing that people go, wow, this is awesome, I've made a great call here?
I think it's important to remember, we hear a lot from our interns, like Erin said, you know, you can try a variety of things in your intern year. A a lot of people after their intern year or a few years into practice get discouraged with the profession, I've found. But one piece of advice I can give, and I give to our interns and our recently graduated interns as well, pharmacy is a rapidly changing environment. And, you know, even if you're working in a hospital pharmacy, for example, and you hate it, hospital pharmacy is going to change. There are lots of other avenues. You don't have to be a customer-facing pharmacist if you don't want to be. It's great to be one. But as an example, I haven't been registered that long compared to some experienced people on the webinar. But when I graduated, pharmacists doing immunisations wasn't a thing. Like, pharmacists didn't immunise when I graduated. And so we've come a long way in a short period of time. So I think pharmacy is a really exciting profession to see what's going to change in future years. And I'm sure others can speak to how much it has changed over the previous years as well.
Yeah, great point. I mean, it's the speed of change and evolution in the last 5 years is astronomical, and you know, we can see a clear pathway for what's coming forward. So as we come to an end to our time together today, I just thought I'd jump around. If there's one piece of advice you'd have for students for a successful kind of registration, I'll start with Erin.
Yes, I probably have the same. I will tell this to everyone that will ask me anything about pharmacy. I touched on it before, and a lot of others did, but it is find your network. Like, if you are here watching this webinar, you're obviously involved in NAPSA somehow or involved in your local branch. Like, build those relationships, because as you continue through your profession, I'm very lucky. I work on a team with a large number of pharmacists. So I'm able to ask my questions at work, in our work WhatsApp group. Like, we can ask between them. But a lot of you will go into pharmacies, say, in a rural setting, and after you finish, you may be the only pharmacist there. You need to make sure you have a group of people you can ask questions to. Some slightly older than you, but a lot around your age and sort of year level. I think I have friends that I talk to all the time that are practicing West Australia, Tasmania, Queensland. We've all got such a different experience, and being able to collect that and help one another, answer questions, bounce ideas off each other is just the best thing you can do. So start building your networks now. I think what is also really helpful is, similarly as touched on before, find someone you can talk to outside of your workplace. Two of the pharmacists I work with are my closest friends, and we have a great chat. We socialise all the time, but it's also really nice to have a bit of a debrief away from that. I'm very lucky my person that I choose to debrief with is also in the pharmacy world, so they do understand a lot of what I'm talking about, and I'm able to sort of rant and give my opinion, and they understand. But having another person, just even if they're just someone that you can not dump on, but like express and talk and just let your energy out, is really helpful, and it's really good for your mental health and things like that. I'm very lucky to have a large variety of people I can talk to, and have helped me through my intern year and now into registration.
And that's a great asset. Hayley?
I've got two as well, sorry. The first thing is something that I kind of, it's my mantra. It's know what you know, and know it really, really well, and know what you don't know and where to go and find the answer, because that will get you out of a lot of really difficult situations where you're trying to fumble your way through something that really you don't know. Just go look it up. The second thing would be pharmacy as a profession and as a career is very diverse. You're not limited to just hospital and community, and the skills that you have are transferable, and you can work in any number of areas. So don't be limited. Take every opportunity that comes your way, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least it's an experience that you can learn from.
great advice. Kate?
I think Erin and Hayley have both taken mine, but I mean, I really agree. Network, build your connections, use social media to build some of those connections, go to face-to-face conferences. And I really like Hayley's advice around taking opportunities, and that's both within the profession, but also a little bit broader. If there's an opportunity to attend a leadership course or participate perhaps in a public speaking type of training, do those sorts of things as well, because they will always stand you in good stead in pharmacy as well, because as Hayley said, it's a very broad profession and there's many opportunities, and we're just going to see more and more opportunities. Pharmacy really does open up a huge world. And look, you can always keep up your clinical practice and do other things on the side, or vice versa. You can sort of focus on something else, but keep your hand in with pharmacy. And a lot of people, they mix a little bit of everything. It's, that sort of idea of having more than one role and getting that variety in your life. And so, it is fantastic. I sort of fell into pharmacy. It was, one of those things, come on, pick what courses you're going to apply for, and picked pharmacy at sort of right towards the closing date of university applications, and I've never regretted it. It really has offered a lot of different opportunities.
Nice one, John.
I would say to young pharmacists, be inquisitive. Don't just stand in the dispensary pumping out scripts like an automaton. You'll soon become very bored and disillusioned. But if you think about what you're dispensing, do a bit of extra research, look for the clinical states and treatments that these drugs use, it'll become much more interesting to you, and all the dots will start to align. So, yeah, really be inquisitive about what you're doing and how you can improve your knowledge.
Can I just throw in the last one there, based on what John was saying, is talk to the patients and get their feedback and experiences. They're the ones who are using the medications. You'll learn a huge amount if you ask them some questions and grow your knowledge that way. Ask them about side effects, ask them about how they manage their medications. You'll get a lot of tips from them because they're doing it every day.
Yeah, great advice. And Ali?
So firstly, while pharmacy is broad and there's lots of areas you can go down while you are a pharmacist, the pharmacy industry itself is small, so never burn your bridges. Don't leave a job under a bad environment or leave in a huff. Secondly, the reason why people are pharmacists, and I'm sure as students the reason you want to be a pharmacist or you are going to be a pharmacist, is to help people. And an extra 2 minutes or 5 minutes with a customer can either save their life or drastically improve their health outcomes. So don't be tempted, like John said, to be an automator and start pumping out scripts. An extra few minutes with a patient can really make a difference.
That's all great advice. So I think in closing off our time here today, I think kind of having that mindset of, and probably, I guess, exhibited by Erin, of how can I help the health of my community better today? And that's going to John's point, that's going to enable you to be inquisitive. What other services could we be delivering? And just because the world is, as you see it in the current pharmacy that you may be entering, that doesn't mean it has to stay that way, and that pathways many and varied. Build networks. Don't be afraid to put your hand up, and to Hayley's point, there's things you know and things you don't know, and just make sure that you know where to go and get help and support, except you don't know anything. Build your communication skills and build those networks and relationships, and that will move you smoothly in the transition. Smoothly, I say, sitting in my lounge room in the inner west of Sydney, but it will move you smoothly from that kind of intern position into a newly registered pharmacist. So wherever you're joining us from today, I know you'll join me in thanking our panel. Erin, Ali, Kay, John, Hayley, thank you so much. Mel, thanks for putting this together. A really insightful and passionate panel. And I think with advisors like this, our young pharmacists are in a great position. So thanks again.
Thanks, Andrew.
you.
And I would also like to reiterate the thanks across the panel. We certainly had a crack team to discuss these topics today. So thank you for your time. I know it's a really busy and challenging time in pharmacy land at the moment, so I really appreciate you giving up your time for this. I'd just like to quickly thank our sponsors again, principal sponsors EBOS, who is Symbion and ProPharma, and our foundation sponsors PDL and Gold Cross, for without them this would not have been possible at all today. So thank you very much to them. And thank you to all of you for attending and looking to expand your knowledge and to look forward to what your career might look like in the future. So again, thanks everybody for attending, and that is the last session for the Student Summit today. So talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.